Okay, great. So thank you everyone for joining us today for the for another another virtual event sponsored by the I-Corps Rutgers program. Today we're going to be learning about how to find funding fast with Tanya Volkert. She is going to be training us on how to use Pivot software, and I'll go into that in a little bit. But we do want to take a minute just to give a little bit of a introduction about I-Corps and what the I-Corps site is about. So Lori, I don't know if we can just go ahead and start.
Sure. So I just want to welcome everybody and just give you a quick overview. Our I-Corps site is all about driving innovation through customer discovery. So it's really learning if you have an idea, and it could be basic research, it could be a patented innovation, it could be a copyrightable innovation, or it could just be something you're starting to work on. It doesn't have to be fully developed. And basically, we give you some tools and techniques about customer discovery. So today, we are going to just give you a brief overview of I-Corps. Then Tanya's going to talk about Pivot and how you can find funding fast. And then at the end, we're going to provide some time for you to answer questions, to ask questions, and we'll answer them. And feel free to put your questions in the chat. We ask that unless we call on you, put yourself on mute, just because we realize there are a lot of outside noises and things, and we want to be, respectful to the speaker. So thanks. So just to go a little bit about our goals for I-Corps, which stands for Innovation Corps. So I-Corps is all about innovation and really bringing innovation out of the lab and into the marketplace. So it's not about developing the technology itself, but it's really learning if there's a market for your innovation. And the National Science Foundation, which funded I-Corps, is really doing that to increase the impact. So if you can have an innovation that saves lives or that makes things easier for people or saves them money, it's really an impact, and that's what I-Corps helps you do. It also decreases commercialization risk. If you've ever heard about angels or venture capital firms talking about an innovation and they don't want to take it on because there's too much risk, it's too early stage. Well, I-Corps helps bring that innovation a little bit further along the pipeline and allows teams, and we do teams of at least 2, to test concepts and ideas. And it helps entrepreneurs really learn quickly before they spend a lot of time or money. The third really key goal of I-Corps is to increase the network opportunities. We run a cohort, and we usually have about 10 teams. So you will meet people from around the campus, whether it be other faculty, staff, or students. We allow alumni to participate in our program. And it's also people from all different disciplines. And we have mentors on our teams that are from industry and organizations outside the university. So it's really like the quote says at the bottom, bridging the gap between the lab and the marketplace. So it's helping take those innovations and kind of bridge them along. And now Mark's going to talk about the Lean Launchpad methodology.
Okay, so we will get to find funding fast in a minute. I just want to talk a little bit about I-Corps, a little commercial. But the idea is that the I-Corps program is based on Steve Blank's Lean Launchpad methodology that uses evidence-based entrepreneurship. So you can get out of the building and meet with people who could potentially buy or use your innovation before you actually build it. That way you can have a better understanding of what their problems are and design a solution that better meets their needs. Rather than building it all first and hoping that they buy, you ask them what they're looking for in the market and then build what they're asking for. So Steve Blank says, get out of the building because there are no facts inside the building. It's based on this this business model canvas, and we focus on the customer segments and the value propositions on the right side in that red circle, whereas the National I-Corps focuses on the full 9 parts of the business model canvas. Each week they have a different theme: customer discovery, value propositions, customers, users, payers, and then there's office hours. And then finally, we introduce teams to the larger ecosystem, innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem for funding, resources, mentorship, all the things that you would need to help support you in your commercialization journey. It's a team-based program with an entrepreneurial lead who's typically a student, who we think of them as like the CEO of the company who really is looking for the market opportunity for the innovation. This person on the right, the technical lead, is considered the inventor or the technology expert who really understands the science of what the innovation can do. That way, they can actually they can tailor or change the innovation to suit the needs of what the market is asking for, like your customer discovery interviews are asking for. And then the industry mentor, somebody from outside the university who can connect the team to do some of these interviews. Now, not each team has all three, but the best teams typically have all three. If you can't find one, we can help support you in finding them. But really, the great value of going through the program is you get new thinking, where you have confidence and open-mindedness. You learn about these business concepts and you think like an entrepreneur. You get new skills about how to interview customers, how to present, how to become more confident, and how to really talk to people. So the third one, new people, you really meet all sorts of people and experts, and you just get better at understanding and communicating what people are looking for. And the real thing out of everything, all of it, is the new opportunities to get out of your comfort zone, to get new funding, new resources, new mentorship, new programs, just new opportunities are out there. And we have a couple quotes here that these interviews fundamentally could change their prototype design. A lot of people have a certain idea, but once they meet with people, they realize, oh, we should tailor it this way. And understanding customer needs is really important and critical output of what you get from I-Corps. And so the last thing is about this I-Corps applications are open for Cohort 9. So they are open for the next until next week. So encourage you or anyone who is on this call today to apply at the icorps.rutgers.edu website. We're doing this cohort starting mid-October until mid-November. We do run a cohort every semester, so there'll be next one for spring and summer. We're running them virtually for now, but hopefully we'll go back in person one day. But the cohort dates are on the right, but any more information is on icorps.rutgers.edu. So that's enough about I-Corps. You may have questions about it. If you do, you can reach out to us. Our contact details are here. Lori's email is here. My email is there. But I know that everyone is here really to hear Tanya Volkert speak. So without further ado, I'll leave it to Tanya Volkert. Okay.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Mark. So I want to reiterate what Lori and Mark said. Just thank you all for coming and joining us today to hear a little bit about Pivot. Pivot is a tool that Rutgers acquired earlier this year, and it's one of my roles to try and help people figure out how to use the tool and get the most from it. So I am excited to add you all in as Pivot users today. And I want to emphasize that this training is only as good as you guys are learning what I'm saying. So feel free to ask as many questions as you need to. You can add your questions into the chat box, or I will periodically stop to take questions person to person. So keep your questions on the back of your mind. I do tend to talk very quickly, so if there's something you need me to go back through and show you again slower, please just point those things out. I want to make sure that you're getting everything that you need to. The other thing I want to emphasize before I go ahead and get started is that I like to learn while doing. So if you have a dual screen setup at home, if you're lucky enough to have that, I really encourage you for this training to pull up on your other screen Google Chrome or whatever browser you like to use, and log into Pivot while we go through and sort of follow along as I go. Pivot is a great tool in that you can sort of set it up and then forget about it, and it will start emailing you notices of opportunities that match what you're looking for. So hopefully today you can get your profile set up, and then you can forget about Pivot until they email you next week about an opportunity that you're going to apply for. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get started. I put a link in the chat box to Pivot, and give me a second to share my screen. All right, so to get started, we are going to go to pivot.proquest.com. And very briefly, I will show you how to get started and create your account. So if you already have one, bear with us for just 2 minutes. So on the right-hand side, you will see the options to sign in. And all the way at the bottom in small gray text is the Create Account button. When you go here, there are 2 options. And this is one of the questions I get most frequently. There's an option to use an institutional login, but unfortunately Rutgers doesn't have the level of access that allows us to use our net ID, even though that would be pretty easy. Instead, we have to do this option on the right-hand side to use email address and create password. Once you click that button, it's a very easy, simple form to get signed up. You do need to use a Rutgers email. It can be at any domain, so at yourdepartment.rutgers or at rutgers.edu. As long as it has Rutgers in there, it'll go through. The other thing to note here is that you do need to select Rutgers from the drop-down list of affiliated institutions. If you accidentally select Rowan, maybe you collaborate with Rowan and you want to be on their team, but you use a Rutgers email, it will kick back. It won't let you sign up. So do make sure you select Rutgers from there. And lastly, you have to consent to the collection of your personal information in order to create an account on Pivot. There is a way to remove that consent if at any point you decide you don't want Pivot to have your information anymore, and I will show you where that option is when we go through. But in order to sign up, you do have to give them that consent. So then you will create your account, and like most things, it will send you an email and have you verify, and then you will be good to go and ready to sign in. So going back to the sign-in screen, there are again 2 options to sign in using your Pivot account or to access Pivot using your institution credentials. Again, this is the question that I get most often, so I want to reiterate here, you have to sign in with your email and password. We don't have this option. The other thing I want to point out before we log in is that your username is your email. Some of the autofill settings on some people's computers fill in their username with other things like their name or their last name, and then they can't figure out how to sign in. So make sure if you try and sign in, if there's anything other than your email here that's wrong, go ahead and fill it in with your email and then get signed in. When you sign in, it brings you to this home page. This is actually new. We are really lucky in that Pivot just updated their look and gave us a new user interface last week. So this Pivot training is pretty perfectly timed for you to see the new look. It's a lot more user-friendly than what it looked like before. So I just wanted to let you know that you're all lucky to be learning it now as opposed to the people I taught a few weeks ago who have a new look to learn. But once you're on this home screen, we're going to start by looking at our profile and our account. So the first time you log into Pivot, it will ask you to claim your account or your profile. So right here it says My Profile for me because I've already been using Pivot, but for you, the first time you log in, instead of My Profile, it will say Claim Profile. So I'm going to show you what that will look like. Give me a moment, I'm gonna go into my admin settings. So if I was Diane and I had logged in for my first time and I hit Claim Profile, what Pivot does months ago when we first signed up for Pivot, it pulls through all of the Rutgers.edu websites and things like Scopus and Google Scholar, and it creates potential profiles for Rutgers faculty. Students, graduate students, anyone affiliated with Rutgers can sign up for an account, but it only pre-populates faculty members. So Pivot has found 3 potential Dianes. So maybe there are actually 3 people that have that name, or it's possible that Diane, it looks like she switched colleges, or maybe she switched departments. So if you log in and there are multiple profiles listed here, Pivot just couldn't tell if you were one person or multiple people. So you want to look through and decide which one is most up to date. It will likely be this first option for Diane, and then she would hit Claim Profile. Now, if you're someone like me, or if you're a student or someone who doesn't have one of these pre-populated profiles, you can go over to this left-hand side where it says Can't Find the Profile, and then it gives you the option to create a profile. And you'll have to sort of start from scratch to build your profile. So it's a little more work on your end. So hopefully you will have one of these pre-populated accounts because they're very useful. But if you don't, the next thing we're going to get into is how to edit your profile. So if you click on your name, you can always get to your profile this way. So if you click into your profile, you can see that I don't have very much information here that was pre-populated, or maybe you have a lot of information, but it's from work you were doing decades ago and it's not relevant to you now. So Very important to update your profile. So it's just this little blue button up here in the corner, edit profile. And you want to continue, and it actually takes you into a different tab. It takes you into their development site. So anywhere where there is a crayon or a pen, you can edit that information. So you can add other aliases, or anywhere where there's an add button, you can go ahead and add more information. So one important thing that I would encourage you to do when you're logging in for one of the first times is to add your Orcid ID. That will allow Pivot to start pulling from the information over on Orcid so that your publications and your grants can sort of be pulled in automatically for you. Lots of things that you can update here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the one that I will emphasize is keywords. A lot of people might skip over this aspect of their profile and think that they don't need to add it, but I would encourage you to add keywords as one of the first things that you edit in your profile. It's really important when you do the searches for funding or for collaborators, because Pivot pulls from keywords first when it tries to match people to funding opportunities. So I will show you where that comes into play when we get to the funding searches, but I wanted to show you here where you would go to add things to your profile for keywords. The other thing to point out here is that when you want to add your publications, you can upload them as a batch file. So if you have a CV file with all of your publications, it's really quick to add them. If you don't have that and you want to do it one by one, you can also add them individually by loading in. So once you're done editing, you'll hit done and then X out of that tab and it'll bring you back to the original tab. And when you close that button, it reloads your profile. So all of those changes you just made are actually live in the system. There's no delay. Like some of the other systems we use at Rutgers have a 24-hour delay. Pivot is not like that. It goes just into a live update. The other element of your profile I want to point out is this option to add a proxy. So it's right underneath the edit profile button. And if I click there, I can add a proxy by searching for their last name. And if this is the right person, I would just add her in as a profile. And then maybe I have a lab assistant or an intern and I want all my publications in Pivot, but I don't want to spend, the hour or so that it would take me to do that. I can have Lisa as my profile and then she can go in and make those edits for me. So this is a really useful option if you have someone else that might be able to do that for you. The only thing to note is that they do need to have a Pivot account. So if you're searching for someone and they are not showing up, it's likely because they haven't signed in to Pivot for the first time. So you'll have to tell them to sign up, and then once they have, you'll be able to add them in.
Tanya, someone has a quick question for you.
Perfect.
So can you unmute yourself? Is it?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I think I have missed some points. I just kind of joined in. Just one question. You were going through all of it. There's a thing called Pivot RP, which you are talking about. When I'm trying to create the account and I'm choosing my institution, Rutgers doesn't show up. So do you have any comments on that?
Yes. So let me sign out really quick.
Sorry if I have to, you have to repeat anything which you already said.
No, no worries. This is the question that I get all the time. So likely you have gone to this option here, this use institutional login.
Yes, yes.
So we don't actually have it set up with our net ID. So you have to use this other option here to use email address.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gives you this affiliated member institution. And then you'll scroll.
Got you. Okay. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
You're not the only one who's going to have that problem, so I'm glad that it came in.
It's the question that I get most often out of anything, so no worries. I'm glad that I got to show you that.
All right, thanks.
I found if you put in a Rutgers email address, it automatically populates Rutgers. You don't even have to select it from the list of institutions.
Perfect, Lori. I didn't even know that. So you're teaching me something.
Tanya, can I just put this poll in real quick just to find out who's in the room?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I forgot about our polls.
So yeah, I just wanted to add there, you just put in what type of the following best describes you. We want to make sure that we meet, we're able to answer all the questions for all the people in the room. And it seems like it's a pretty broad representation here. A lot of graduate students, but there is a little bit of everybody here, which is great. So I will stop polling and I will share the results. So it's pretty distributed.
Yeah.
A lot of staff researchers, a lot of graduate students, no faculty. But that's fine. I mean, you know, if you can find funding that your faculty could be the PI and apply for grants, and that's great. So this is just great. You can train them.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Did you want to do the other polls now, or?
Yeah, I'm actually curious. So let me launch this other one too. What types of grants and awards do you typically search for? And you know, people search for different things. So definitely choose the multiple ones. And then the second question is how often you search. And the third question is when you search, how long does your search last? So feel free to answer those questions. Just a few seconds. If you haven't noticed, there's 3 questions, so make sure you scroll down. Okay, we're still getting people answers. I'm sorry, this poll is kind of long, but it'll really help us figure out which best to share.
Yeah, and
Okay.
there's I've also learned, and you may cover this, Tanya, that there's scholarship opportunities for students in this pivot as well. So you may find funding for research, but you could find funding for other opportunities. I've found funding for projects. It's not really research, it's more opportunities to do a project.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna share these results. So a lot of people are looking for nonprofit and foundation grants, which is interesting.
Perfect.
A lot of NSF and NIH and federal, some state grants, corporate grants too, good. Other, I'm curious what other means. How often do people search? They search every other month. Okay, they don't search every time, but the bulk of them are searching at least a few times a year, several times a year. But the third question is the most interesting. When you search for grants, how long does your search last? The bulk of the people who answered more than an hour, between an hour and 2 hours, which is a long time.
It is a long time.
But I think if you invest in this time now, it'll cut that down and give you more time to write the proposals rather than just searching.
Yes, that's excellent. I'm glad that we had that last question in there, Mark, because with Pivot, I mean, I do searches every week, but for me, I'm spending 5 to 30 minutes. So hopefully those of you who are spending almost 2 hours on your searches, hopefully we can get that time cut down for you significantly. So I'm excited to about that last question.
Thank you. Great.
All right, so to jump back in, the last thing I want to show you with profiles before we get over to funding is if you go to your name and then go to preferences, or you can get it from this center box, my profile preferences. This is where you can update your email preferences. I have my notifications set on. Some people are sort of overwhelmed by their emails, so they might change how frequently they want to access that. And I mentioned before the privacy information and data gathering, so you can turn that off if you go to change account information. At the bottom here is where you can no longer consent to the collection of data if you so choose to do that. Hopefully you will enjoy Pivot and want to continue to use it, but if you decide you don't and you don't want that, that is an option. All right, so finally we are getting to the funding portion of today's training. So you can start your funding search from a couple of places. So if you go to the Home tab, there's this huge funding search bar where you can type in whatever words you are looking for, or there is a tab for funding. So if we go over to the funding tab, again, there is a search bar that you can start off with, or you have this keyword wheel that's really fun. I just want to point it out quickly. Let's say you were doing an innovation in engineering. If you scroll through the key wheel, here is engineering. And then I can get more and more specific within engineering. So maybe I'm doing engineering and electrical engineering, and I am looking for navigation and guidance systems. Maybe my innovation has to do with navigation. So if I click there, it does the search for me and just gives me those very specific results. So you can see I have a great narrow list of just 6 results based on that keyword wheel. So if you know the sort of genre of funding you're looking for, or if you just want to sort of browse and see what's available, the keyword wheel is a really fun way to sort of see what's out there for different branches of science. Most of the time though, when we come to Pivot, we have a search that we want to do. So for today's training, we're going to stick with innovation as our keyword. So there are a couple of ways to search. So right now I have my search in all fields, which is probably the way you will search on a typical basis. But you could search by funder if you were looking for something very specific, or you could search by keyword. I recommend a keyword search for people who are doing a search and you're coming up with a crazy amount of funding opportunities. So you've narrowed it down as much as you can, and you're still getting more than a couple hundred funding opportunities come up. Probably it's just the words that you're searching are very vague. So if you do a search by keyword, it's looking at just those specific tags and you'll get very narrowed down results. So that's why I would recommend that third one. But for the most of the time when you come to Pivot, you're just going to use the default search all fields option. So you can see if I just search innovation, I get more than 2,000 results, and that's a lot. So I can start to narrow down to look for what's exactly right for me by using this left-hand bar over here. One of the most important ones or useful ones is the option to do a search for just the opportunities that were added in the last 7 days. So if you are doing your funding search once a week, you come into Pivot, you don't need to change anything other than to click that button, and now I just have these 14 new results. Instead of having to sort through 2,000, I just get the new results. I can remove that filter by clicking it again, and I'm back to 2,000. I can filter by submission type, whether I'm looking for a limited submission or not. I can filter by deadline. So what Pivot does is if there's a funder, let's say the Moore Foundation, if they have an opportunity that they do every year, but they haven't published this year's funding opportunity announcement yet, Pivot will list it, but they will tag it as anticipated. That way you can know to prepare for that funding opportunity when it comes out. And when they do finally publish the FOA, then the Pivot team will go in and mark it as confirmed. So you can also just look for those confirmed ones if that is something you're interested in. You can search by funding type. So Lori mentioned this before, it's not just research that's on here. They do have training and scholarships, fellowships, tons of different types of awards. They even have things like artistic pursuit listed here. So you can really get very specific and narrow down your results there. You can search by sponsor type. So a lot of people said they were doing private foundation work. So we will add that filter in, and now we have 146 results instead of 2,000. You can also filter by applicant type. So if you are an early career faculty member, you could filter by that. You can also put in that you're an undergraduate student or a graduate student, and you will just get the results relevant to you there. You can narrow down by keywords. So as I said before, sometimes the word that you typed in, I typed in innovation, and that is very broad. But if I am looking specifically for a health and medicine innovation, I can filter by those keywords to now just see 15 results instead of the 2,000 or the 146 that are here. And the last thing that I can filter by on the left-hand bar is currency. So Pivot is a global site. It will pull funding opportunities from South Africa, from the UK, from Australia, and not all of them are open to people from other countries. So you can filter, if you're looking for just American foundations or American companies, you can filter by currency. So if you have done your filtering on the left-hand side, I'm going to get rid of private foundation. If you do those filtering and it's still too many results, so 2,000 is way too many, I can then go in and do a different type of search. So back at this top here, it tells me that my search is for the word innovation, and I have some options. The one that I want to warn all of you to never do is an advanced search. If I click advanced search here, it clears out any of the filtering that I've done. So it gets rid of the word innovation. It gets rid of any of my filters that I had put on from the left-hand side, and it basically starts you from scratch. The better option is to do this third option, which is refine search. So if I have filtered for something over here, so I will filter it for research, it will keep this filter when I hit refine search. But it gives me some more options. So I can look for innovation, or I can spell entrepreneurship, or I could add technology. I can also add and. So if I'm looking for innovation and health, now I will only see the opportunities that have both of those words. You can filter by amount. So if you're only looking for funding that is above a certain number, so right here I'm looking for 10,000 or above. I can filter by deadline. So maybe I'm looking for something soon and I want to look for deadlines that are within 30 days. I can again filter for limited submissions. I can filter for location. So I am in the United States. I can filter by citizenship. And again, funding type. This scroll down here has more options than the left-hand bar. So if you're not finding the exact type on the previous screen, you can always come in and do a refine search to find more options. Again, you can search by keywords. You can add additional keywords, and by applicant type. And again, this has more options than the previous screen. So if you couldn't find what you were looking for on the other screen, try a refine search and see if you can find it here. Same thing with sponsor type. The other good feature of a refine search is that you can also exclude certain opportunities. So if I am not looking for something related to engineering, I can enter engineering here. And anything that has engineering in the description will be kicked out and I won't see it. I think the most important one of these are deadlines. So I am not looking for opportunities that have a deadline within 7 days because that's not feasible for me to be able to write a submission for. So I can exclude anything that is too soon. And then the other options here are all the same as above, but this time it's the opposite. You are excluding. So I'm going to go ahead and do a search again, and let me pause. Did we have a question there?
Yeah, someone wanted to know if Pivot includes internal Rutgers opportunities.
We have the option to include internal opportunities. Right now, Pivot is so new that a lot of our departments are not using Pivot just yet. I do trainings every couple of weeks to get more departments into the system. But unfortunately, a lot of people haven't started using it, but someday we do have the option to have internal opportunities in here as well. Things that are run by ORED, so things that are run by me and my team are being put into Pivot, but not all of them yet, but that's a great question.
So if someone has an opportunity, are you the person they should contact if they want to get it added to Pivot?
Yes, if there's an administrator on the line or someone that runs internal opportunities, you can send me an email. I believe it was on Mark's slide, but if not, I will put it in the chat box before we leave today. Send me an email and I will either add the opportunity into Pivot myself, or I can give you administrative rights into Pivot so that you can add those things on your own and have some control over it. But we can have that conversation. Just send me an email so I know who you are.
There's also a question on undergraduate funding. I don't know if you want to do it now or you want to wait till you finish this section.
Nope, go ahead. You can ask me now.
So you can unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi again. This is me. So I'm an undergrad student, and like we are trying to do a capstone, and like we were kind of like like trying to do something innovative, and like we have come up with some plans, but I don't want to discuss it right now. But is there any way like using Pivot we can like ask for funding through that? Is that something that's possible, or is it something that's totally, I'm talking out of sense?
Yeah, so Pivot has those opportunities for undergraduate students and for projects like capstone projects. We just would have to narrow down the scope of your search. So you would use the refine search option to add in all of the criteria based on what your capstone idea is. And if you and your capstone teams, I would get to this at the end, but I am very passionate about Pivot for all who are on the line and helping people really figure out their search. So if you have a team, whether it's your I-Corps team or a team that you're working on for a project, whether you're a faculty member or an undergraduate student, you can reach out to me and we can schedule a time to look at Pivot and set up one of these searches specifically for you. So it is user-friendly enough that you might be able to do it on your own, but for something like a capstone project that is a little bit of like a niche funding type,
right.
We can set up a meeting and I can help you figure out your search so that you can get.
All right. That's so, thank you so much. All right.
Of course.
And Mark put Tanya's email in the chat, so it's already there.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So I refined my search and now I only have 18 results, which is great. That's much more reasonable to read through than the 1,000 that were on it before I had refined my search. So when I'm looking through here, if I'm interested in this opportunity, I would click the title and it will open into a page where it gives me a description, all of the information that the Pivot team has loaded in. It will tell me the abstract from the funding opportunity announcement. It will also give me a link directly to the funding opportunity announcement. And then the deadlines will be listed at the bottom here. So that will give me information. And if I'm reading through and I decide, yes, this is an opportunity that I am interested in, what I can do is on the right-hand side, I can track the opportunity. So if I click that opportunity, that little flag is going to turn red, and that basically saves that opportunity onto your account so that you can come back next week and look at it again, or if something changes related to this opportunity, you will get a little notification up here saying this opportunity has changed. So if you find something that you're interested in, whether you're sort of vaguely interested in it or actively you want to pursue it, go ahead and track it. That way it's easy for you to find later. Your other option on the side here is to share the opportunity. So if you share the opportunity, you can email it out. Maybe there's someone else from your I-Corps team that you want to send it to see if they're interested in applying to it with you. So you can start by searching their name, and if they are a Pivot user, they will pop up automatically. If you want to send it to someone who is not a Pivot user, you can just type in their email, add a message if you want to, and it will be emailed to them. They will be able to see the title and the sponsor, as well as I believe the due date, but they won't be able to click the link to open it. They would have to sign up for Pivot in order to open it in Pivot, but it will give them some of the basic information so they could look at it outside of Pivot if they were against having a Pivot account. The other option on the side here is to curate an opportunity. I only mentioned this because it sounded like there were maybe some administrators on today's training. So if you're an administrator and you want to publish a list of opportunities for your department or for your team, we could get you administrative rights so that you could curate the opportunity. That way, if anyone from your team logs into Pivot, they would be able to see it. And I will show you that where they would find those curated opportunities in a little bit. The next thing I want to point out is on this right-hand bar. This one's easier, so we'll start here. It gives you a funding contact person, so someone from the sponsor that you can contact if you have questions about the opportunity. And then the really interesting thing that Pivot does is it gives you a list of potential collaborators. So it's telling me that there are 936 Rutgers profiles that potentially match based on these keywords and the description this opportunity. So if I click in to see who those 900 people are, it will give me a list, and then I could look at their accounts. I can see what this person has listed here. And if it's someone that I think I might want to collaborate, I can get their email from the side here. So this is a really interesting tool if you're looking to add to your team or find someone to collaborate with. And just like on the funding search, you can narrow down using the left-hand side bar if you're looking for a graduate student, for example, to collaborate with, or if you are a graduate student and you're looking for a professor to collaborate with, you can do that. The other really cool thing is that you can look for someone in a specific department. So if I am looking for someone in biomedical engineering, I can put that department in, and now I just see 51 people from that department who have been matched to this opportunity based on their profile. So that's why I emphasized at the beginning of this training the reason why it's important to go in and update your profile and make sure those keywords are there. Because if you are looking for collaborators, you want people to find you, and you want them to find you first. So if you have a more robust profile, you will be one of the first ones to show up in a search if someone is looking on here. I also want to point out, I want to go back now to my profile matches, and the way I can go back, if I hit this little back button, it's going to give me an error, you know, one of those resubmit errors from Google Chrome. But I can go back stepwise using this tool at the top. So if I go back one step, that takes me to the page I was at before. But if I want to go all the way back to the beginning, I can go to that first tab. So Pivot has that as sort of a unique way to navigate. So now I can go back to the funding search using that tool as well, instead of having to try and do my search all over again.
Tanya, we have a question.
Yes.
Mike Fabiano asked, does Pivot support individual solicitations for DoD or DOE grants? He tried the search, but it just comes up with the department and SBIR, but not a specific solicitation.
I will have to look into that. They should be in there individually. If they're not, it's probably something that the Pivot team has just not captured yet as an opportunity. So if you email one of those opportunities to me that you're not finding in here, I will send it over to the Pivot team. They're very responsive and ready to hear our feedback. So if I send them one that they've missed, they're usually very on top of making sure those things are added in the future.
So there's click on, if you see the DoD Breast Cancer Innovation Award, that fourth one.
Yes.
Can you search by like the agency? Like it'll show all the, does it show all the different solicitations from a specific agency? You know what I mean? Sometimes you can, so to see the sponsor, Department of Defense, can you click on that and it'll?
I believe it just shows you, so it would show you all of their.
Okay, that's great.
Opportunities.
Someone else had a question, Tanya, about Pivot taking over research with Rutgers. Maybe you can explain a little bit about the difference between the two.
Yeah, so Pivot and Research with Rutgers are unrelated at this time. Research with Rutgers is our collaboration tool that we use. We highlight that tool really for industry partners who are looking to collaborate, and then we use it internally as well. There is some interesting things happening with Research with Rutgers. That's one of my other projects that I work on. Research with Rutgers is powered by Pure, which is a different database, and we are losing access to Pure. The state of New Jersey has decided not to continue with it, so we're getting a different program to take over the Research with Rutgers function. Pivot does some very similar things to Research with Rutgers in that you can find collaborators with it, but we didn't get Pivot in order to replace Research with Rutgers, because Research with Rutgers is part of Research with New Jersey, and all the other New Jersey schools, Princeton, Rowan, they also are part of that Research with New Jersey, Research with Rutgers program. So while you can do some things that Research with Rutgers can do in Pivot, and they run sort of similarly, they're separate projects and you'll still have access to the other one. Pivot isn't here to replace Research with Rutgers.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so we looked at doing a funding search, refining our funding searches, and when you open an opportunity, what you can do with it, tracking, sharing, and finding collaborators. We're going to go, whoa, I just zoomed out. We're going to go back to our home tab now. And if I have saved an opportunity, how do I access it again? So on the home tab, you see this bar all the way on the right-hand side, this box that says my funding opportunities. So you can access your tracked opportunities by clicking there. So these are all opportunities that I have said I am interested in, either now or in the future. You'll notice that they have this email alert on them. I can turn that off by going to Options, turn off email alert. If I'm really interested in this opportunity, I should probably leave that on so that if there are any changes, I will get a notification sent to my email about that change. But it's really up to you on how many emails you want to be receiving about the opportunity. You can also share this opportunity. So maybe you didn't share it from the other page. You can also share it from going to Options, Share, and do the same thing as we did before with adding an email in. So these are my tracked opportunities. Something that I did not show you on that previous page is how to save a search. So if I've done this search, I've filtered it, it's exactly what I want to be looking for. I can, third option besides advanced search and refined search, the third one is to save your search. So I could give this a name, and then I can decide whether or not I want to receive an email telling me about new opportunities into this query. So those of you who are saying that you're spending more than an hour searching for opportunities, set yourself up to get an email containing new opportunities. You might not get them every week. There might not be any new opportunities, but when there is a new opportunity added, you'll get an email and you'll just save yourself that time. You don't have to do it manually. It's being done on the back end of Pivot without any effort from you. So you can save that opportunity or save that search. And then if we're back on that home screen, I can go into my saved searches. So next time I log in, I can just go into that innovation saved search instead of having to start from scratch and enter in my filters again. It's all saved. I don't have to put that effort in or that time in again. I can look at all opportunities. So right now there's 2,000 opportunities that match those search results, or I can just see the results for September 13th. So it's updated every weekly. The next time this updates will be September 20th. So this is showing me the 38 new opportunities for this week. So just another way of getting Pivot to do some of that work for you instead of you having to manually go through and look for the new opportunities. Back to the home tab. The other option here is the advisor. So the advisor, this is another reason why you should update your profile in those keywords. The advisor is a Pivot algorithm that looks at your profile and it looks at all of the funding opportunities it has loaded into the database, and it provides you 50 top matches to your profile. So the more accurate you have your profile, the more accurate this advisor is going to be. And the last option on the side here is curated. So I mentioned this before. If you're an administrator, you have the ability to curate a list. That means anybody who logs into Rutgers will be able to see your curated lists. So I've created a couple of curated lists based on COVID for people who were looking for funding opportunities. I also have a graduate student federal opportunities curated list. So when you log in, anybody who's on this call, you will be able to see this curated list. And the last thing that I did is I already have a curated search set up related to innovation. The keywords that I used were innovation, entrepreneurship, and technology. So this is telling me that there are now 870 results that match the filters that I set up last week. So when you log into your account, you already have this innovation related search that you can find just by going to your home tab and that last option there, curated opportunities. So if you wanted to just take a look at my list instead of setting up your own search, you could do that by going to the curated lists. That brings us to 3:51, and I wanted to give you a little more time than that to ask questions, but I did take some throughout. So I will pause my talking and I will open it up to any other questions that we have.
Tanya, can I just add this last poll just to find out where people typically go?
Absolutely.
To find their funding opportunities? If you can, just put your answer in the chat just to find out where people go. And if it's something that you go to that is not on this list, maybe you could just put it in the chat so we know where people are going and kind of direct them to go to Pivot.
Perfect.
Okay, just a
It's
few
only
more.
letting you select one, so you're gonna have to pick your top one.
Right. Yeah, I should have probably made it multiple, but that's fine. Okay, it's more than half. I'm gonna just end the polling just so we can see.
So while Mark's finishing up with the polling, oh, okay, Tanya had a question there, another question.
Anyway, it looks like most people go to grants.gov and a lot of others. If you want to put other, whatever other is in the chat, then we can see what that is. But I think Pivot is a good solution for us moving forward. But you can go with your question.
And for people who use grants.gov, Pivot does pull from grants.gov. So you will get any opportunities that are listed on that site added into this database as well. So you can find those opportunities by using Pivot.
So the question was if you could find a list of angel investors or other type of investors through Pivot.
I'm not really, I don't think so. You could find, if an investor has a published opportunity that they are looking for, so if it's, Ford and they want to invest in technology related to cars, they would have their funding opportunity here. But if you're looking for, just sort of private investors who don't have a published opportunity, it wouldn't show up here. Really only things that are published as funding opportunities are here. A good place to go if you're looking to just find investors that maybe don't have published opportunities is the Corporate Engagement Center. I work really closely with Sasha and Kara from the Corporate Engagement Center, and they have conversations all the time with investors from different companies. So they would be a great source if you're looking for something like that to help you figure out how to have those conversations and find investors that way. Pivot really only contains the opportunities that are published, open to universities.
I was also going to say Angel List has a list of all angel investors. It's a really big resource, but you probably want to find them by sector because not all angels or venture capital firms invest. I know we've worked with like Osage University Partners, which tends to invest in early stage innovations coming out of the university. And it's always best to have some kind of warm introduction if you're thinking of talking to an angel or a VC, because they get a ton of unsolicited people sending them pitches. So someone said, can you type the website? Oh,
I just put it there.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
I think everybody wants to play with Pivot. And again, I think, Tanya, one of the best things about your training is that you really went through all these different scenarios of what you can do and what you can change. But the challenge is to go and do it. It's very easy to be like, oh, Tanya told me about it, and now I'm going to get all these funding opportunities sent to my email, right? Yeah. No, you got to do it yourself. Tanya is just the spokesperson, but you really got to do it for yourself. And Tanya's there, and we're here to help you guys do it. And the more Pivot people who use it, the better the tool becomes for us, right, Tanya?
Yes, absolutely. The other thing that I did not mention are groups. And so if you're on this homepage, there is the option to do groups. So this is not a function that we're really using at Rutgers right now, but we could use it if I-Corps wanted to. We could create an I-Corps group and add everybody who either has an I-Corps team or is on this call. We could create a group, and then when you want to share an opportunity, you would share it to the group. So this is an option. Again, nobody at Rutgers is using this right now except for me. I use it to reach out to the administrators who use Pivot. But there is an option to do groups. So even if you had your I-Corps team and you wanted to have a group set up for just yourselves to use Pivot to communicate with each other and share opportunities, reach out to me. We had my email in the chat from earlier, but I'm happy to help you guys set up a group. That's just another function that I didn't talk too much about, but if it's something you're interested in, we could discuss it and get it set up for you.
So one of the things I find with I-Corps is we get a lot of people that want to use their Google email address. So the requirement is if you're using Pivot, you have to use a Rutgers address.
Yes, it does have to be linked to a Rutgers email address.
And now someone asked the question, can you find other institutions' internal funding opportunities in Pivot?
It depends on how they have it set up. So if Duke has an has a funding opportunity and they have it open to other universities, they would have to, when they load it into Pivot, they would have to select that it can be seen by other universities. So a lot of times when I add internal opportunities, it's only for Rutgers. So I check the box that says only people that have a Rutgers affiliated account can see the opportunity. So it really depends on how the other university is inputting them and what settings they choose.
Like reading the fine print. It's like when I look for student pitch competitions, there are some universities that open them up to everyone and others market them broadly because they want people to come and watch. But when you read the fine print, it's only open to their students. Anybody can watch or attend, but the actual competition is only for their own students. So read the fine print.
Yes.
Sorry, I was going to ask Tanya, can I have a question? Is it okay? Yeah. So can you invite people to Pivot from Pivot?
I do not exactly. You could share an opportunity and then let me find an opportunity. So if I were to share this opportunity and their name doesn't pop up, so I know that they're not in Pivot, I can add my own message here. So it's not built into the system, but you could invite them to Pivot in this way, share the opportunity and write the message that says, you know, I'm interested in talking to you about this opportunity. Really easy, set up a Pivot account. You know, so that's sort of your workaround to do that through the system. But it would be great if they added that in as a function.
Yeah.
That's good the way you did it though, because it's like you can see part of the opportunity, but if you want to see all the details, you got to join Pivot.
Right. Yeah.
Good question.
Yes.
There's a question here. Do you recommend we add a photo?
That's sort of up to you. I have not seen any. So I had a really fun task earlier this summer to comb through all of the Pivot profiles. So I looked through the thousands that are on there from Rutgers. I didn't see any that had a photo, so I don't think it's very commonly done. But if you are someone who really wants people to collaborate with you and that you think they might try and find you through this tool, adding your picture just makes you more of a person. And I've always found that adding those personal touches might make you seem like someone that's more willing to collaborate if someone reaches out. So sort of a personal preference. There's really no benefit other than that sort of personal touch aspect. But it's not very common that people do have those pictures added.
Right, so Maka had just a comment that he said with the way people are listed, an image would make you stand out, which is true. If no one else has photos and you have a photo, they might be more likely to reach out to you.
Yes.
So Maka, I'm looking at your photo and it looks kind of interesting. It doesn't look like the real Maka.
It's like an avatar.
A caricature. Maybe you turn on your video and show us yourself. I'm gonna call him out. He's not. He said yes. Oh, there he is. There he is. Hi, Maka.
That is my avatar from when I was working at a startup. We taught role playing through a online. We taught programming through an online role playing game. And so all of us had little avatars that were in the same style as the characters in the game.
Oh, that's cool.
Very cool. I like where you are though, sitting outside. I'm about ready to go outside. It's been a long day. I want to get some fresh air.
There's a 4-hour plus engineering interview happening in my main office. So I'm hiding so that they have privacy so they can just do their interview.
Cool.
Right.
Great. So Tanya, is that it? Are you finished?
Yeah, that's all for me. If I think you captured it before, that really your questions will come once you start using Pivot and playing around with the system. So I am always happy to answer Pivot questions. I love this tool, so don't be hesitant about emailing me about Pivot questions, whether you think they're too small or too big. If it's something that is bigger, like you want help setting up a search for your group, I'm happy to schedule a quick chat just with your team so that we can get this customized to your needs. So thank you everyone for listening to me go on for about an hour. But I'm really hopeful, and I hope you guys will start using that tool.
And I just want to say, you know, if you think it'd be helpful to have like a pivot part 2 in another couple months after you played around with it, let us know. Or if there's any other opportunities related to innovation, entrepreneurship, that, you know, guest speakers or people that you think that we could bring in, we're open to suggestions, and we really appreciate it. And we thank you all for joining us today.
And I just want to make a plug also for next week's virtual event. I know we are helping sponsor this event, and we do want to get the word out about the I-Corps program. We are actively recruiting for Cohort 9. So any of you innovators or anyone who's on the call who knows someone with a, innovation, a STEM-based innovation that wants to commercialize it or get it out in the market, or really, help figure out who their innovation could help, have them join us for our info session number 2, which is next Tuesday at 12 noon. Again, we want to spread the word so we can get as many people joining our program, so we can get their innovations out of the lab and into the market. So thanks, Tanya, for joining us. You were amazing as always, and thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, for letting us interrupt you midway through. You didn't lose the flow at all.
No, that's perfect. I like the questions.
Great, thanks. And we'll be on for a minute or two. If anyone has any other questions, just put them in the chat.
I like the idea of a pivot part 2. There might be some other deeper questions for people who have been more advanced users who are having trouble, but we'll see how people start using it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to do in a month or two after people have started using it, to have them come and have it be more of a discussion about what their needs are instead of me throwing the information at them.
Right.
Great me.
Got a lot of good feedback in the beginning about the wheel. They thought that was really cool. The funding.
Oh, good.
That is really, I'm looking at it. It's very interesting, unique way to search for funding. I've never seen anything like it. From what I've seen, what I like about Pivot, it seems very intuitive. The other platforms that I'd searched for funding just seemed like if they didn't make common sense the way they work. This one seems very intuitive, and it works the way you would think you would do a search.
Right. Well, so they just launched the new user interface last week, and it is so much more user-friendly now, in my opinion, especially that home page was not there before. So it used to be sort of tricky to find your saved searches and your tracked opportunities, but now it's really clear and called out on that home page. So Pivot does a really great job of responding to feedback and sort of updating their site to make it better and better. So
that was going to be my other question, because if people have issues and you find that there's something that could be better, they should let you know, because you have contact with the Pivot.
Yes, absolutely. We will bring it to our Pivot representative, and they're really, really responsive. So any feedback or anything you'd like to see that's not currently a function, definitely let us know. I jotted down the ability to invite people to Pivot, because I think that would make it a lot easier to expand the usage.
Excellent. I know I'm going to set up my searches.
Good. Very good.
Okay, great. So if there's nothing else, I'll stop the recording.